That's right. Okay, welcome everyone. I am Councillor Lee Hunt, and I am the Chair of the Planning Committee. Please be assured that we are putting appropriate cleansing and social distancing measures in place to ensure that this meeting is undertaken in a COVID-secure manner. This has included a request for all attendees to have an LFD test within 48 hours of the meeting, the use of NHS Track and Trace app or attendee log, 2 metres social distancing, the wearing of masks when not seated, a one-way system in the Guildhall and a temperature check upon arrival. Limited public seating has been made available. However, this meeting is also being webcast to allow the public to attend remotely if they so wish. Please be advised that the public seating area is not in view of the camera used to webcast this meeting. Can I please ask members to remain seated throughout the duration of the meeting and to wear a face covering unless seated. Please only use seats marked with a green circle. These seats have been allocated to ensure 2 metres social distancing. This is the housekeeping and safety information. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery to the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts. Please assemble at Queen Victoria's statue in front of the civic offices. In order to comply with the Guildhall Trust Fire Marshal regulations, anyone who signed in at the reception desk should sign out when leaving the building at the end of today's meeting. Live web streaming. May I draw everyone's attention to the fact that this meeting will be live streamed. Everyone speaking via a microphone will be on the camera, including those making deputations. Members of the present public are also permitted to record the meeting on the understanding that it neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stating explicitly that they do not wish to be recorded. Please can everyone use the microphones and remember to switch them off when they have finished. So if we go round the table, and we'll start off with the councillors, and we'll go from right to left in order. So Councillor Fielding, if you'd introduce yourself, please.
Hello, Chair. Councillor George Fielding, Central Southsea Ward on the Planning Committee.
Thank you, Chair. Judith Smythe, Member of the Planning Committee, Councillor for St Jude Ward.
Thanks, Lee. Darren Sanders, Councillor for Baffins, North Milton and South Coppermere, deputising for my colleague, Councillor Lynn Stagg.
Good morning, Chair. Chris Atwell, St Thomas Ward and Vice Chair of the Planning Committee.
Thanks, Chair. Dave Ashmore, Councillor for Fratton Ward, and for this meeting I am technically Gerald Vernon Jackson.
And if we could start with the officers and other people in the room, so if we go from right to left again, around the back, all on the same level there.
Good morning all, I'm Juliette Gill, I'm the Principal Planning Solicitor for Portsmouth City Council.
If you could, you'll see a button with a hand waving at you at the bottom. You just press that. Are you doing that? And a red light should come on your... That's it. And if you lean towards the mic...
Certainly.
Otherwise you won't be able to be heard. So just lean towards the mic.
Thank you.
Move over a little bit.
Thank you.
Is that right?
That's fine. Thank you very much. I'm Mo Horswell. I'm here about Southdown View.
Thank you, Mo.
Thank you.
Madam? That's it. This is just sort of a dry run for you. If you go to the bottom of the block, you'll see a little switch. And if that's it, you're on. You're live on telly.
Hi, I'm Sally Saunz. I'm resident for Southdown View.
And sir?
Good morning. I'm Mervyn McFarland from Turley. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Hospital Trust in relation to the Queen Alexandra Hospital application.
Thank you indeed.
Good morning, Chair and Committee. My name is Kevin Wood. I'm here to read a deputation against 13 and 15 Shadwell Road.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is James Harris. I'm the Senior Local Democracy Officer. Good morning, I'm Edward Chapman-Selton, I'm a Development Management Team Leader.
Thank you, Chair. Eze Keledo, Head of Development Management. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. So obviously we are without some of our colleagues this morning, and they gave sort of consent for this to go ahead. I spoke to Councillor Ryan Brent yesterday, and they made some representations to me. So what we're going to do, we're going to baton through in absolutely the normal way. If members have recommendations to make, then we'll listen to them after the item's been introduced by the officers and we get legal advice too. Councillor Sanders.
Thank you. This, just in the interests of transparency, partly for Juliet, with regards to the first and second applications in Shadwell Road, I live in a HMO. I think there's a personal but not a prejudicial interest as I don't live in this area. Is that correct, Juliet?
There's nothing for you to declare.
Fine, thank you.
Councillor Ashmore. Just to say that I have to be gone by 12 noon, but we've already discussed that earlier, but just, obviously my kids are finishing early today.
Yeah, we're very grateful for your attendance this morning. Thank you very much indeed as a standing deputy. So the apologies, I've sort of given a broad brush apology for some of our other colleagues. We all know why they're not here. They're self-isolating at the moment. Any other apologies that need to be made? Councillor Stagg, you're here for Councillor Stagg. You're here for Councillor Vernon Jackson. Otherwise, we have a full complement. And thank you both for coming along too. Yes, madam.
I just say we were due to meet with Daniel Weemus here, and because he's self-isolating, we haven't actually had the opportunity to do that.
That's very kind. Thank you. That's very kind of you. We'll come to you a little bit later. Yeah, I have to persevere with this for the time being. So, Councillor Sanders has given his interest. Any other members with interest? Okay, so we've got the minutes of the previous meeting, which you should all have seen, I think. So, I'm going to move those minutes as approved. Do I get a seconder, please? Anyone? Councillor Sanders, thank you very much indeed. So those minutes are approved and signed as accurate, etc. Now we're going to move to update on planning applications. Have we got any, Ezzy, any items you wish to report to us?
Yes, I do have. We have five items on the previous applications. We've received three appeal decisions from the Planning Inspectorate. One was for an advert consent that was refused and the appeal was dismissed, and that was for 28 Mammon Road. The inspector agreed with the council that the effect on the amenity of the area would appear inharmonious and visually intrusive feature that would fail to preserve the heritage assets, and also that there would be an impact on highway safety, and thus dismissed the appeal. The second appeal that was dismissed was for 15 Montego Mary Road, and that was with regards to HMO, and the planning inspector agreed with the council that the lounge fell below the requisite floor area. The lounge was for 12 square meters, and the requirement under the HMO SPD was for 14 square meters. And also that the effect on the soil interior was not mitigated again successfully. The final appeal decision that we received was for 251 Twyford Avenue, and that was for a change of use from a mixed-use retail A1 to residential C3, and proposed falling within Class 3 dwelling house of C4 housing multiple occupation. The inspector did not agree with the council's local planning authority's view and allowed the appeal, believing that there would not be any material impact on highway safety or the living conditions of local residents due to the availability of on-street vehicle parking. And then we have received two householder appeals. These are pending at the moment, which the LPA will robustly defend. Those were for 225 Havant Road, and then the other one was for 17 Cranes Water Park in South Sea. Chair, if I might indulge, please. We've further received updates from the Ministry of Homes and Community and Local Government with regards the updates to the MPPF. So the MPPF now, and within the report, references to it to 2019 should now read 2021. This was released quite late yesterday. Unfortunately, officers couldn't make those amendments to the report. But Chair, just to advise the Planning Committee that references to the MPPF 2019 should be read as MPPF 2021. e.g. paragraph 2.2 and 2.3 of 13 Chadwell Road, where reference number 20/00485/FUR. Specific references within the reports have been reviewed by us, and changes to the MPPF published yesterday are not considered to justify any changes to recommendations contained therein. The amendments to the MPPF, in our view, make a number of changes, but only one worth highlighting to members is probably in respect to the Queen Alexandra Hospital application, and that's the new paragraph 96. Paragraph 96 of our quote states, to ensure faster delivery of other public service infrastructure such as further education, colleges, hospitals, criminal justice accommodation, local planning authorities should also work proactively and positively promoters, delivery partners, and statutory bodies to plan for required facilities and resolve key planning issues before applications are submitted. Chair, if I can confirm that the government emphasis through this paragraph, the importance of fast delivery of public service infrastructure like hospitals. We can also assure the committee that pre-application advice was given and proactive positive work undertaken with the hospital to resolve key planning issues. That'll be end. Thank you, Chair.
Well, I think that last matter reflects how the importance we hold of getting the business done today, despite some of the issues that we've been seeing very recently. And also, I think, too, from what Ezia said, it proves, it supports the attempts of the work by the members to challenge room sizes and communal areas in HMOs. And I think we should always want to focus on those things because people have to live in them. And if they're not up to scratch, then we see that we can win on appeal. So, I hope members will use their judgment and scrutinise the measurements. It's not always easy in a fast-moving application, but Cal Corkery was here last time and he did extremely well at doing that. So we'll move on then to the planning applications, and we're going to start with 13 Shadwell Road. And just to let the officers, Councillor Sanders.
Lee, can I suggest that given that these two applications are next door to each other, that just to sort of have a smoother discussion and no overlapping of issues, that we have two presentations, because they'll be separate presentations, but one discussion which will include overlapping issues, and two votes, just to speed things up, or to smooth things over, I
suspect that won't be allowed, but we'll go over
it's just they're next door to each other. And
Thank
so
you,
both
Chair.
will have an effect on each other.
The applications are actually separate applications, so they should be decided separately. There obviously is a slight overlap in that they're next to each other, but that doesn't make any difference to the percentage behind the policy. So, granting one doesn't affect the other.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much for your help, Councillor Sanders, and thank you very much for your advice. So we're going to have to go through them all at the same, all are independent, all on their own individual merits. So there we are. We're arriving at the reports now, which is on page 17. We're starting off with 13 Shadwell Road. there's something on the supplementary planning list. You've all read it. We've got a further letter of objection since the agenda was published, raising concerns regarding parking and increase in antisocial behaviour. The representation raises no new material planning considerations so far as the officers are concerned, and the matters raised have been addressed with the officers' report. This was also an item that I received, gentlemen, yesterday from Councillor Ryan Brent on behalf of the Ward Council, saying that they would like the item deferred. So I just put that out there as a representation, a late representation. Okay. Ed, is it you, Ed? Yep, thank you. Away we go then.
Good morning, councillors. So this application 20/00485 FUL at 13 Shadwell Road is for the change of use of the property from 3 self-contained flats to 1 dwelling house to be used for purposes falling within Class C4 house in multiple occupation or Class C3 dwelling house. As many of you may recall, this application and the following one at 15 Shadwell Road were debated at the last committee meeting on the 29th of June, but were deferred by the committee to allow officers to investigate the use of number 17 Shadwell Road, the property in between. There's a street view picture of 13 and an aerial photograph and the location plan there. Following that investigation, officers can confirm that, as set out in paragraph 5.7 of the officer report, page 22 of your agenda papers, number 17 is owned and managed by the Clarion Housing Group. The property was visited by a member of the planning enforcement team on 9th of July 2021, who spoke with a care worker at the door, who confirmed that the property provides supported living for 3 people with round-the-clock care. This appears to be consistent with council tax and HMO licensing investigation and records. On that basis, it is considered that 17 Shadwell Road is in Class C3B use, and therefore the proposal would not result in 3 or more Class C4 HMOs being adjacent to each other, nor would it result in any residential property Class C3 being sandwiched between 2 HMOs. To briefly run through the slides, as I said, this application relates to a 2-storey property located on the southern side of Shadwell Road. Planning permission is sought for the change of use from 3 self-contained flats to 1 dwelling house within C3 or C4. The building is currently vacant. Internal accommodation, that's the existing floor plans on the screen in front of you. And those are the proposed floor plans. The internal accommodation would comprise, on the ground floor, a bedroom with ensuite a separate WC, study and a communal living area, and on the first floor, 3 bedrooms, all with ensuite bathrooms. The proposal comprises a 4-bedroom HMO. However, in planning terms, a C4 use would allow occupation of up to 6 individuals. The room sizes have been assessed against the space standards for a 6-person HMO. The communal living areas exceed the communal space requirements for a 4-person HMO and meet the requirements for a 6-person HMO. In addition, all of the bedrooms are above the minimum space requirement and are above the additional standard of 10 square metres as defined within the standards for houses in multiple occupation guidance document. Based on the information held by the City Council, there are no other confirmed HMOs within a 50-mile radius of the application site, shown on the screen in front of you. Within this 50-metre radius, including the application site, there are 80 properties. This proposal takes into account any properties which have been subdivided into flats. The addition of the proposal would result in a 1.25% concentration. However, the LPA has received an application relating to number 15 Shadwell Road, next on the agenda, and should that application at number 15 also be approved, it would increase the percentage of HMOs within the 50-metre radius to 2.5%, and therefore still within the 10% threshold of properties within the 50-metre radius. The proposed development would not result in 3 or more Class C4 HMOs being adjacent to each other, nor would it result in any residential property Class C3 use being sandwiched between the two HMOs. In terms of neighbour amenity, the proposal would result in the existing 3 self-contained flats being converted into one dwelling house, which would be used for purposes falling within Class C3 or C4. It is therefore considered the intensity of the use of the property would not be significantly altered by the proposal, as the proposed use would accommodate a similar number of occupants. In terms of parking, the requirement for the existing building is 3 spaces, and the parking requirement for a 4-bed C3 dwelling or C4 HMO is 2. Given that the proposed parking requirement is less than the existing, it is not considered that an objection on lack of parking could be sustained. Council's adopted parking standards set out a requirement for C4 HMOs with 4 or more bedrooms to provide space for the storage of at least 4 bicycles. This property has a front and rear garden where secure cycle storage could be located, and this requirement can be secured by condition. Thank you.
Any questions, members? Councillor Sanders.
Thank you. Yes, I have a few, Ed.
Apologies, sorry, I've run ahead. We've got to do the deputations.
Oh, my apologies, sorry.
It's my fault.
No, my fault. Sorry,
I was thinking about the deputations because I heard that, is it Mo? Yes. You want to do a deputation on this item, I understand, but you're not on my list, as it were. So can I just get some advice about that, because I'd like to go to members to see if they want to hear the deputation.
Lee, you've got this wrong. Mo and Sally are down for deputations, but for South Down View, not for this one. So they are here for the right thing, mate.
Beg your pardon. Sorry.
Chair, it's Kevin Wood who's down for deputation on 13 Shadwell.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Chair and committee members, as a resident of Shadwell Road, I wish to reinforce my objection to the HMO of 13 Shadwell Road, and also in turn support the valid objections from my neighbours. Hopefully choosing to re-attend today conveys that we're still not just an angry bunch of keyboard warriors upon your planning portal. It's true the housing needs in the city are stretched, but introducing transient residents into what are effectively bedsits is no way comparable to the benefit to the city and the community of reintroducing a good-sized family home. The rule of HMO distribution is in place to try and create a balanced placement of these properties. Taking most Portsmouth streets are terraced on both sides, as they are in this case, an average distribution would place an HMO in every 5-house length section. This is very high, but it is the rule that cannot be changed. However, in the 5-house section in which I live, we already have a busy care home with a full complement of residents and 24-hour living care staff, an HMO in all but classification. Placing 2 more shared properties next to and sandwiching 15 between a care home on one side and an HMO on the next. This outcome would up the micro-distribution amongst those houses to 30% among my 10 neighbouring properties, and create a 3 in a row, which the SPD does not recommend, creating a vast imbalance of property. The property has already undergone months of building work to be converted to the plans you see and judge in this case, without any of the required planning permission in place. Barring final decoration, it's pretty much ready to go. Being a realist, that the outcome that this will pass application on technical merit would be very disappointing, not only for the planning process itself of having to gain approved permission before carrying out such work to your property, but the local residents who will be left to pick up the pieces of the social issues that will occur if this development passes. I request you please reject this application outright. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Gentlemen, just for the sake of those people, before we get to questions, could we just touch on the one that Mr. Wood mentioned, because officers have been along to investigate it, and it's been found to be in Class C3B. I just wondered if you could tease it out just for a minute, for the sake of those people who might be watching us on the internet, because this was raised at the last meeting, and is the reason why it got put over to until today. just to describe what has happened, the investigation and what the result was. I know it's in the report, but nobody can see the report.
Thank you, Chair. As I set out in my introduction, an officer of the planning enforcement team did visit the number 17 on the 9th of July. Prior to that, the officers had ascertained that the number 17 is owned and managed by the Clarion Housing Group. And then at the visit on 9th of July, the planning enforcement officer spoke with a care worker at the door who confirmed that the property provides supported living for 3 people with round-the-clock, i.e. 24-hour care. And that was consistent with council tax and HMO licensing records. On that basis, the case officer's advice was that that number 17 falls within use class C3B, and importantly, and not C4, so cannot be classified as an HMO.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. So members, questions?
Chair, sorry, before we go on to questions, there is one written deputation that needs to be read out because someone is self-isolating, so it's Christian Reynolds. I'm not sure who's
reading that out. Yeah, you fire away, Ed.
Thank you, Chair. Deputation for 13 and 15 Shadwell Road, and this is from a Mr. Christian Reynolds. Due to self-isolating, we can unfortunately not attend the meeting today. We submitted a deputation and attended the meeting last month for applications on 13 and 15 Shadwell Road. It was established that both schemes meet all the Portsmouth City planning requirements, complies with PCS 17, PCS 19, PCS 20 and PCS 23 of the local plan, and also complies with the size and standard requirements set out in the HMO supplementary planning document. The addition of both properties as C4 HMO properties will also be well under the 10% density put in place by Portsmouth City Council to ensure mixed and balanced communities remain. There was just one outstanding query regarding the usage of 17 Shadwell Road. Portsmouth Planning Officer Hannah Goldsmith has subsequently performed a site visit and confirmed, as was stated last month, that 17 Shadwell Road is a C3B usage. To reiterate my earlier comments, both properties will be finished to a high standard, well managed, and provide much needed homes within the city. We would therefore be grateful for the committee to support the professional officer's recommendation for approval for both applications today. And as I said, that's signed by Mr. Christian Reynolds. Thank you.
Okay. And if you're watching, Mr. Reynolds, thank you very much for sending that in, and I hope you get well soon. Finally, members, to questions. Councillor Sanders.
Thank you, Lee. Ed, in paragraph 1.11, you say planning permission was refused in 1977 to make these 3 flats. How many people lived in the family house in 1977? If you don't know, that's absolutely fine, don't worry. Okay.
Thank you for your question. I do not know that.
That's very helpful. How many people currently live in the 3 flats?
As I understand it, the building is vacant.
No, okay, but it's 3. There's 3 separate flats, and they're either 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom flats. Do we know how many people? Do we know how many bedrooms each of the flats has, Ed?
I don't offhand, but bear with me, I can get that answer to you very quickly.
That's going to be hugely helpful. The reason I'm asking, Lee, is because I just want to check and see whether this is actually an increase in the number of people. It's certainly an increase in the number of bedrooms, because it's going from 3 to 4. But I want to see if it's an increase in the number of people, because I want to come back to that in a bit, because there's some things in his application which I'm confused about.
In the meantime, can we, I don't know what we've got on the screen, can we just put up the ground floor plans?
Yeah, I'd be delighted to see that.
Just put them up there. And let's keep them there for the debate, for the time being.
Chair, if I might help, I think looking at the existing ground floor, we find on the ground floor we have 2 studios, and on the first floor we have a 1 bed, and there's a communal lounge at the first floor of the existing, and a kitchen at the ground floor and at the first floor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you say communal?
But there's only 1 lounge in the building on the first floor.
So there's a communal lounge for 3 flats? So this is already a HMO, isn't it? It's a communal lounge?
Well, there's only 1 lounge. Well, there's only 1 lounge, Councillor. So that would be my assumption. Looking at the plans that's up on the screen.
Okay. I'm a tad more nervous than I was 5 minutes ago about this. You've been kind enough to talk about bathrooms, all of which are en suite. We know from Public Health England guidance, when we're putting rough sleepers into private accommodation, that their definition of a HMO is a shared bathroom as opposed to a shared dining area. So it's a shared, you're talking about a shared dining area, aren't you? A shared communal dining area as opposed to separate bathrooms, yes?
Just to clarify on that, Councillor, I think if one is to look at the plans that are up on the screen, you find that the studio has connection to a kitchen. So that studio has a connection to its own kitchen, down to the plans that are on the screen. And then the other studio flat, which is numbered number 3, has its own kitchen to the rear.
Okay.
And those are up on the screen. And then you have what I think, so I think I probably erred in saying that there's a communal lounge, but actually it's only a lounge for the upper floor is a flat in itself.
Okay, because you've got 1 on the bottom and 3 on the first floor, haven't you? So
no, you've got 2 studio flats on the ground floor.
No, I mean the new building.
Oh, the new building. Okay, can I just move the screen? Yeah. So, what's your question, Councillor?
My question is so the bedrooms have ensuite bathrooms?
That's correct.
Yeah. Currently, there are communal facilities in the building, correct?
It's proposed, yes.
So, do they exist now, or are they coming up in future resi? I interpreted from you that actually there were communal facilities now.
No, Councillor, I corrected myself. If I could just refer you back to the existing plans, I did correct myself.
That's fine.
What we have on the screen is we have 2 studio flats with their own kitchen. So they're numbered there with those black arrows there. So you have studio flat number 3 and studio flat number 2. And then up the stairs you have the arrows pointing 1, and that's flat on the first floor.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, as you were just confusing me a tad, and it's my fault for misunderstanding because it sounded like it was a HMO now, as opposed to in future, and I'm delighted with that clarification. It's got 4 bedrooms, 4 separate bedrooms, but it's 6 people, up to 6 people. Is that correct, Essie?
Sorry, Councillor, are you referring to the proposal?
You moved 3 self-contained flats into 1 HMO, and we don't know how many people actually lived in it the last time it was a family property, which was in 1977.
That's what the officer said, yes.
Okay, so it's 4 bedrooms. Do we know how many bedrooms the original house had? If we don't, that's fine.
No, I don't have that information at hand.
No, that's all right, that's fine. So it's 4 bedrooms. Have they said it is 4 one-bedroom rooms?
Just look back at the description of the development. Yeah.
Because I know you don't like comment sleep, but what it's sounding to me like is they're trying to get more people into this place than there actually should be going in.
Sure, and you can make that argument when we come to comments.
It's just, it sounds obtuse.
I'm interested in the questions that you're asking, all of us are.
Chair, if I may just clarify that for Councillor. So the proposal comprises a 4-bedroom HMO.
Right.
In planning terms, a C4 use would allow occupation by up to 6 individuals. The room sizes have been assessed against the space standards for a 6-person HMO.
Right, so the working assumption is it's 4 bedrooms, 6 people.
Could have up to 6 people.
Up to 6 people. What's to stop them from having more? Is there anything?
That would be a licensing issue, I think.
So there's nothing in planning to say that 7 or 8 people could live in here? Is that correct?
Sorry, Councillor. If the different classes have different requirements, so if they were to exceed that number, they'd be in breach of planning.
Okay.
Thank you.
I understand, but there's a concern from the local residents that I've picked up, Kevin, and I may be wrong, that actually it's not going to stop at 6. It's going to go to 7. It's going to go to 8. And that's something we've seen time and again when it's come to HMOs.
Sorry, Councillor, I don't see where that's relevant in terms of planning, where we can put a control on that. If the plan permission were to be granted, and that plan permission will be linked to the extent of the use. If they were to exceed that, then I think they'd be temporary and sui generis. So I think we can't be projecting what people might or might not do, right, and how they might use the space. They might actually have one person in the HMO.
So the argument which has come up quite a lot across the city, which is actually 6 will mean 7 will mean 8, is irrelevant in planning law. Is that correct?
That's not what I said, Councillor. I said that if they exceeded the number required or stipulated in statute, they will be in breach of planning and it will be a change of use of that unit.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. You say that there's going to be, in paragraph 521, you say there's going to be fewer parking spaces, unlike number 15. How can we enforce the smaller number of parking spaces that exist? Can we? If we can't, that's fine.
What paragraph are you referring to?
Not 521, it's a section with regards to parking. And you say in the application in that section that there are fewer parking spaces. There will be fewer parking spaces, not like number 15. Yes. So you've got it's the highways implications, 521. Yeah. Because I read it, and I may be wrong, that currently there are 3 parking spaces. And it's going down to 2. If I've misread it, that's my fault, and I apologise, Ezzy. You say in 523, given that the proposed parking requirement is less than existing, it is not considered an objection or lack of parking or impact on air quality could be sustained. Therefore, there's fewer car parking spaces than there are now, correct?
Yes, it's considered that an objection or lack of parking and impact on air quality are both those 2 factors, yes.
Okay. But
Chair, can I just come
sorry,
in?
Juliet.
The existing use requires 3 parking spaces on the road. 3 parking spaces, but the use it's going to only requires 2, so there is a reduction in the need for parking by the new development.
That's very clear. But what concerns me, and I suspect may concern some local residents, is actually 2 cars becomes 3, becomes 4, if it's a 4-bedroom property. So is there any way in which we can control that if this were to be allowed? I'm assuming no in planning law.
Councillor, I do not believe there's restriction on car parking within the area, and even if there were, there's case laws that we cannot discriminate in terms of parking, based on parking permits. So unless there's on-street parking restrictions, then we cannot. Yes.
So no. Those were my questions, Lee.
Yeah, thank you very much for teasing out the issues raised by Mr. Woods and his concerns. Any other members would like to ask any more questions? Okay, so we move over to comments then, members. Councillor Smythe, thank you.
Could you just confirm that the communal space, I'm looking at the space standards, does or doesn't include there's a little study area, isn't there, at the moment? Does it include that?
You guys are in a much better position than me. I've got a tiny little thing on here and I can't see very much at all, so I am relying on you to test communal spaces and other related issues.
The communal spaces that you've identified are a combined living area, 34 square metres, on page 23.
That's correct.
Is that the next one? Have I confused the two? No, I don't think so. No, 13 Shadwell Road.
There's a table at 5.12 on page 7. I
Correct.
believe.
That's
Yeah.
the one on page 23. There's a combined living area identified of 34.1 square metres, being slightly over the required standard for 6 people, because you've explained that in the previous paragraph. Does that include, that doesn't include the study area, or does? It's when you, could you say undefined here?
So looking at that table in 5.12, the combined living area provided is 34.1 square metres. The required standard in the HMO SPD document is 34, so it exceeds it by 0.1. The study area provided is 10.58 square metres, and there is no required standard for study
No,
areas.
but that's additional to the 34.1
Yes, it is.
square metres.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
It is a little unclear, so in fact there's 44 square metres available for communal use. Thank you very much.
So members, do you think we've established the communal use area as being satisfactory?
Yes.
Thank you. So move over to comments then. Well, don't jump all at once. And we're looking for somebody to either propose the officer's recommendations or somebody to oppose the officer's recommendations.
Chair,
Councillor Atwell.
I'm happy to move the officer's recommendations.
Thank you. And we need a seconder. Councillor Smythe? Yes, I think this has been tested to the limit, and we've inquired into everything that has been raised with us. We have a very strong policy, and I see people won't agree with us, but we have a very strong policy to share out, as it were, this form of accommodation city-wide. In some roads, this form of accommodation, for example, in Margate Road, is up to about 88, nearly 90%, I think, of all the accommodation. And so we brought in some very powerful policies to prevent that happening elsewhere. I would say that it's unfortunate that this form of accommodation over the years have become stigmatized, largely through the misbehavior of some residents, but that is another issue for other enforcement within the city and the police. And indeed, sometimes, not all, but sometimes, landlords who just don't give a fig about what happens in their property, and therefore we see residents concerned about these applications, but we have nothing in front of us today which we can, so far as I can see, properly refuse this matter, although we have done plenty of other times because of space standards and so on. So members, we have a proposal to approve this application with the conditions. Can I see all those in favour, please? If you raise your hands. And including me, that is unanimous. So that's the end of that matter. And we move on to the next matter, which is 15 Shadwell Road. I presume it's you again, Ed.
It is indeed. So as with the application at 13 Shadwell Road, again this was deferred from the previous meeting to allow officers to investigate the use of number 17, which I think, unless you want me to explain again, but I think we've established is providing 24/7 care and is in use class C3B. Moving on to number 15, There it is in Street View, and again on aerial and site plan, location plan. And again, the 50-metre radius is shown outlined in red there, with residential dwellings as the blue lozenges, for want of a better word, with one unknown or HMO possibly just lying outside the 50-metre radius in the northwest segment there, approximately number 34 Shadwell Road, I would guess. So this is for the change of use from a dwelling house to purposes falling within C3 or C4, to provide a 4-bed HMO. There we have the existing floor plans on the left and the proposed floor plans on the right. So proposal is for a 4-bed HMO, but it meets the room standards for a 6-person HMO. It does result in a 0.5 car parking space shortfall, but that is not considered refusable on that ground alone. So that is basically the application, and there we see the combined street view of 13 and 15. And that ends my presentation. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And as I say before, Councillor Weems, Daniel Weems, the ward councillor, on his behalf, Councillor Brent said they wanted this matter deferred. That's a matter for the, as before, it's a matter for the members to decide upon, not me. So we've heard the presentation from the officer. Mr. Wood, over to you, sir.
Chair and councillors, as a resident of Shadwell Road and a very near neighbour of the property in question, I wish to reinforce my objection to the HMO of 15 Shadwell Road. If passed, the property will have a large impact on issues arising in the community. Regardless of the classification and the care home of the classification of the care home at 17 Shadwell, this is going to create a dense run of 3 remotely managed properties in a row that puts pressure on the area above that of a standard family home. Traffic, as you can see from the satellite images, parking, refuse, and perhaps most importantly, social issues created by the tenants that the residents and community of Shadwell are simply left to deal with, which we would trust the approval process takes into account. I urge the committee to reject this development for homes for professional people, as they seem to be cunningly marketed in favour of retaining a true family home within the Portsmouth housing stock. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I think...
Chair, there's the written deputation again on this one.
I presume we have to do that one, Rubes.
It's up to you, you can take it.
Members, you've read it. I don't want to waste your time this morning. We've read all the information. Of course, I'm not wasting anybody's time, but do you want it read through, or it's been read out before? So we've got the evidence here in front of us to base our... Thank you very much indeed, members, for that guidance. Any questions, members? Councillor.
Chair, could we see the proposals for the...
Sure.
Again,
good idea. Can we put them up on the screen again, the ground floor and the floor above that? When
I'm particularly looking for the maybe a little bit more explanation how paragraph 612 at the top of page 32, and I'm not quite sure why it says undefined here. I'm not used to that applying, but the dining room, living area and kitchen add up to 25. Can we just have that again so we can see exactly how that works? And you've explained there that it's 22.5 metres squared is the minimum requirement. It's not quite the same as in the previous report, is it? Which I know is a different property. There we were talking about 34 square metres for a combined living area. Could you explain the difference between those two? And just looking at that
Great question.
It's all the space north of the, not north, at the back of the house that we're talking about, is it?
So we need to know what the communal area space is, gentlemen.
Differs so much from the previous application.
Thank you, Chair. If I may refer you to the footnotes within the report, just below paragraph 6.12, I think we draw reference from the HMO SPD, which refers for HMO accommodating between 6 to 10 people. The proposed combined floor area of the dining and kitchen of 25.57 will exceed the minimum requirement of 22.5 square meters. So there's no guideline in terms of dining and living room within the SPD. But the footnote in the SPD itself says that a combined area of these two should be minimum of 22.
I'm reading the report and I understand the report. I'm curious about why it's so different from the previous application, where it was stated that 34 square metres was the required standard for a combined living area.
The previous one had a combined living area as the dining living area and the kitchen all together. This one you have the kitchen separate, so that breaks that up. That's why there's no defined guideline within the SPD for that.
I'm sorry, I may be being unintelligent here, but I don't understand the requirement under the previous application was for 34 square metres, I think, wasn't it?
Yes.
34 square metres, that's the required standard for combined living area.
Yes.
And the required standard for the combined living area in this one appears to be only 22.5 metres squared, and I don't understand why they're different. We've got one table of required spaces.
Sorry, Councillor, let me just make a reference to the SPD. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't bring mine with.
We teased this out last time and an application was refused on these sorts of grounds.
I mean, the kitchen is, am I right, is in the middle of the ground floor here, with a living room, dining room in the old extension at the back. So those two added together are what gives us the 14.5 metres squared plus 11.01 metres squared, which is 25.58 metres squared, as I calculate it.
Which in both cases seems to be, in all cases, seems to be below the standard required.
Well, unless they're two different standards for different properties.
And truthfully, I'm not much help here because I can't see it's about the size of a book, a small book.
Chair, if I may, as set out in the report at 2.7, paragraph 2.7, the applicant has confirmed that this would be a 4-bed single occupancy HMO. 13 Shadwell Road was, whilst nominally 4, had been also assessed against the 6-person HMO standard, which was where the 34 square metres comes from. So that was assessed against for being a larger HMO potentially than this one.
And the SPD identifies those differences?
It does,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I hope that will be the answer, but I couldn't see I needed to ask the question.
Yeah, thank you for that. And what does the SPD say about it? Is it 22 points? What is the standard for an up to 4-person HMO? For communal space?
The report does say that it's over leaf. It says 22.5 metres squared, Chair. I mean, they have missed the opportunity to make the kitchen a bit bigger, I think, because it's a big shower room there, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Smythe. Okay, gents, I think we've cleared that point up. Councillor Sanders?
I'm happy to ask a couple more questions if there are any more questions.
You go ahead.
Okay. Ed, how many people currently live in the property? I can't see it in the report, which worries me. Mr. Wood might know, but how many used to?
It's shown as a 4-bedroom property, I believe. One is definitely only a single-sized room by the sound of it, but by the look of it, so I suppose it had the potential for 5 or 6 people to live there.
Okay. But you...
As a single family, under C3, yeah.
Right, okay. There's no parking. They say 4.5, again, I may have this completely wrong. But 4.5 talks about no parking. Yes, sorry, I apologise. This increases the parking demand by 0.5 spaces. Correct? Because it goes up from 1.5 to 2. Yeah. With the cycle storage, which is mentioned, you mentioned the cycle storage will be held at the rear of the house. One of the local concerns was just how practical that is, because it'd be sort of dragging it through the house, which may be a tad inconvenient, which obviously leads to the risk of it being in the forecourt or on the pavement. Is there anything that can prevent that happening?
On the application, I think my page numbering is different to yours. It's at the bottom of the page. It is condition 3, which requires prior to first occupation of the property as a house in multiple occupation within use class C4, secure and weatherproof bicycle storage for 4 bicycles shall be provided at the site.
That's very helpful to get that clarification. That's very kind of you. There are a couple of other things the residents raised which I just wanted to check out because I wasn't here last time, so I'm confused about this. They say there are 3 similar applications pending for HMOs. What are they? It's in their objections. There are many, many objections in this. But they talk about pending planning applications. I don't get that at all. Yes, 5.2a, it says 3 similar applications pending at the same time. 13 and 15 I don't get the other one. It's the second line of A in paragraph 5.2.
Yes, Councillor, I've seen the objection, but the officer, our records would have picked that up if there was pending applications, and within the 15-metre radius, would have picked it up.
Okay, so this is the one on the other side of the road that you referred to later on, because you did an investigation, there was an even-numbered property. There was actually not a HMO in the end.
That's number 17 you're referring to?
Okay, I'll take your word for it. I thought it was on the other side.
I know I'm asking, Councillor, sorry, I'm just asking whether it's number 17 you're referring to.
That may be correct, but that may also not be correct, but I'll take your word for it. The other one is the damage to historical architectural features in the conversion. Forgive me, I don't know Shadwell Road that well, and my apologies for that, but what architectural features will be damaged in the conversion?
Well, if the building isn't listed, we would have no control over.
Right. Okay. So even if it was a building of local historical significance, as it's not listed, there's nothing we can do.
It's not. As far as I'm aware, it's not locally or statutorily listed, nor is it in a conservation area.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Those were my questions, Lee. Thank you very much, and thank you for your patience.
Councillor Fielding.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a question regarding the occupancy, the intended occupancy of the property. In paragraph 2.7, it says that all 4 bedrooms will be single occupancy. However, in 6.2, we're referring to not more than 6 unrelated people. Are we able to put a condition on this to say that it's only 4 people occupying the property, or are we open to it being up to 6 people, because the space that's there intended can allow for double bedrooms effectively?
Just checking, Councillor, thank you for your question. We can condition occupancy. And occupancy is also managed by the licensing regime as well. But we could put a condition on to limit occupancy.
So currently that condition's not there for up to 4 unrelated people. Presumably when we come to the debate, you want to put that condition in.
Chair, can I just advise?
Juliet, go on.
The use class allows up to 6 people, so I wouldn't advise putting on a condition limiting it to 4.
So this creates a conundrum for the committee, I think.
If there are 6 people in there, then the communal living space is insufficient. That's the point that we've come to, I think.
So we've arrived at a conundrum, ladies and gentlemen, of the people who are advising us. Can we please tease out this conundrum and resolve it?
Well, if the communal space is lower than required for 6, yeah, I think it would be reasonable to put the condition on. Sorry. Okay.
So it looks like you'll be putting your condition on, Councillor Fielding, for the reasons described by Juliet. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Ashmore.
Thanks, Chair. Obviously, we've seen a lot of the objections coming through from the residents of the nearby area. They'll know it more than we do. Obviously, I'm not against HMOs. I'm not against them being there. It's a matter of when we pass things, we need them to be good HMOs, both for the people living next to them and for the people that are going to live in them. And we've just heard a lot about conditions and how it would be suitable. We don't want there to be jam-packed full of people. We don't want it to have negative knock-on effects to the people living there and to people next door to them. So as regards conditions regarding things like antisocial behaviour maybe, or if the care home next to them are going to have problems with this, is there a condition we can put on where the landlord has to have a number they can give to the nearby residents of the street in case anything goes wrong, just to give the residents that peace of mind?
Yeah, well, indeed, this is something I've raised, putting the landlord's phone number in the window, but apparently that's not acceptable. Pubs, licensed premises have to have their name of the license. So, but we can ask again, Juliet, is it reasonable or not?
No, Chair, it wouldn't be reasonable.
But just following on that, if we put that, we might not be able to do it in a kind of regulatory way, but in a sign of good faith, because I'm sure the landlord would want to have good relations with the nearby people there. If we put that out there, that they've got a number that they can ring for their peace of mind, that might help relations from the get-go, is all I'm saying, and it gives peace of mind to the nearby neighbours.
I understand the point that you're making. If there was something to go wrong, then the licensing regime would kick in, and we have a number of officers who could then follow that through. I don't think we'll be allowed to add a condition that addresses the issue that you're raising. Any more questions? So again, I just remind members that Councillor Weems wanted to speak on this. He's the ward councillor, but he also made representations last time. I think, gentlemen, they were read out. His views were read out, if I remember rightly. Can we just check the minutes to make sure? I passed mine over there. Can someone have a quick look? I think I read them out.
I think you did, Chair.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want this to be fair because I haven't got the opportunity to say these things. So as with the previous one, there was a request via Councillor Brent to defer this item. And when we get into debate, I'll see if there's any appetite to defer this. This will be another deferral, and I don't think the applicant would be very happy. And I'm sure I'll be watching what's going on this morning. Okay, then we'll carry on. So we move then to debate. Any comments, Councillor Sanders?
Thank you very much, Chair. I was originally going to propose deferring this, as I think the difference between this and the previous application is this is a family home. I understand that between 3 and 6 people, usually 3 people have been in this property, so there is an intensification. It's not like the previous property where it was 3 flats already. So the principle of establishing this as a home for people with multiple occupation had been established. I would say, Judith's points are incredibly fair, I think, mainly because many landlords in the city hate this council, because they hate it because they think the space standards are too high, and they've come to me as the portfolio holder for housing to go, the space standards are too high, and are you going to cut them? To which I've said no, because we're not having people living in pokey holes at all. That's not right on people who rent privately, whether in HMOs or in flats. So I was going to defer this. However, I was also going to propose what George did. So George proposed what I was going to do as a statement, as a question. So I will now second George's proposal, even though George hasn't formally proposed it. What?
You can't second a proposal that doesn't exist.
Chair, can I formally propose that we approve this conditionally on the basis that there's no more than 4 people in occupation of the property?
And can I formally second that?
Thank you both very much indeed, and we know that the legal advice is that we can do that.
Because I think that actually will offer some level of security. It will also affect the licensing regime, but that's less of an issue here. I think from what we've picked up here, I suspect that the private sector licensing team may have a wander round at some stage just to make sure that's being enforced. But for George's thoughts, I think I would have deferred this. The only other point I would add is following on what Dave has just said. I personally would like a condition whereby, as part of the construction process, because this will be changed, there will be a conversion, this will be altered, that in line with normal construction management practice, a dedicated phone number is circulated around, so that local people do know who to speak to. As an informative, because we can't do it as a condition, I would add that it would be that the landlord should circulate their number, and frankly, landlord number 13, who's the same landlord, should circulate their number as well to people in the area. I think that's one of the things we're trying to do as an administration, to foster better relationships between landlords and the local community. And I think that proposal from Dave is eminently sensible. Juliet may well argue us down with regards to a condition, but I think as part of the construction management process that's normal, and I think in future we can add that as an informative for after it is done. So seconding George's proposal, adding in as a condition as part of the construction management approach, circulating round the number, and then as an informative, putting in just asking politely that the landlord circulates their number just in case there's a problem. And I think we can then go ahead on that basis, and I'm grateful to George formally putting that forwards.
All right, so we just get advice on what a standing of an informative is. So far as planning is concerned, it sounds to me more like buildings regulations. Julia?
Sorry, Ed and I are looking at each other with frowns across the room. I just wanted to check with Ed whether he considers it's reasonable to put on a condition in relation to construction management for this kind of development. I think the answer is going to be no. In terms of an informative, I don't have an issue with being added as an informative.
So for people watching, what does an informative mean?
It's merely something that informs the developer to ask them nicely if they'll do it. There's no sort of legally binding thing behind it.
And who will transmit that to the developer? Okay, so it'll be down to you guys. So, I mean, in the interest of neighbourliness, I hope very much that the developer is listening and that he or she takes on board what it is that we have been saying, and he or she will be aware of some of the issues that arise around HMOs. People living there probably aren't going to be very pleased with these going through this morning, but I must say I've got an HMO next but one to me and opposite me and to the left of me and so on, and I honestly don't have any problems. Not one, not yet anyway, and I've been living where I live for 3 or 4 years now, and in fact they're all very nice, apart from a little bit of weed that drifts across the back garden, but that's not coming from them, I'm sure. But that's something that happens all the time. So I've not experienced any problems, but some people do experience pretty awful problems in some locations, and everybody has to live together and we must all respect one another. Anyway, members, so we're moving to the vote then. All those in favour of the proposal, the officer's report, with the addition moved by Councillor Fielding, with the additional condition, and seconded by Councillor Sanders, please show by raising your hands. So that's unanimous. So that one's gone through. Can we please move on now to South Downview Military Road?
Chair?
Sorry.
Given as I'm not sure we'll finish this item in less than 10 minutes, I might have to go now.
Thank you so much indeed for your help this morning.
Thank you.
So we're moving on to page 35, which is in Hillsey, South Downview Military Road, Portsmouth. That application there. So this too, gentlemen, is again the ward councillor, Councillor Weems, has made a representation that he would like to see this matter deferred. We haven't had the opportunity, I think, to hear his thinking on this particular matter, but we will go through the process, we will hear it, and if members feel it's appropriate to defer it to another date, that will be a matter for members based on all the evidence they hear today. Is that fair enough, Juliet?
Yes, members need to consider all the information that's provided to them today first.
So, gentlemen, who's doing this one? Ed. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors. So this is application reference 21/00182/VOC, Unit 1, South Downview, Military Road, Portsmouth, and is an application to vary condition 6 of Planning Permission 16/01539 FUL to allow the premises, that's Unit 1, to be open 24 hours a day. As set out in the officer report, planning permission was granted in 2016 for use of the part of the ground floor of the building. Let me get it up on screen for you. Beg your pardon. So, sorry, Izzy, can you go forward? Yeah, that one. Yeah, that plan there shows Unit 1 highlighted with the red rectangle. So I forget that I'm not actually running the presentation off my laptop, but my colleague here is, for technical reasons. So planning permission was granted in 2016 for the use of part of the ground floor as a veterinary surgery, that's Unit 1, and a coffee shop, and additional car parking spaces, etc. And that was subject to an hours of use condition which limited operation to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Mondays to Saturdays and 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sundays. And the proposal now is to allow the veterinary practice to operate as an emergency practice overnight, so to allow 24-hour operation 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Neighbours have submitted petitions to this application. The committee report addresses the relevant objections from highways and on amenity grounds, but no objection have been raised. The proposal is considered to be acceptable. It should be noted that it is only the hours of operation of the veterinary practice that is sought to be amended. The delivery times element of that condition remains as in the original consent. As set out in your supplementary matters report, you'll see that the conditions have to be reproduced on a Section 73 application, and that is set out in the table within Appendix A for you. And as such, the officers propose that the recommendation be changed from conditional approval to approved, subject to delegation to the Assistant Director of Planning and Economic Growth, the final wording of other appropriate planning conditions in accordance with the original grant of planning permission. Thank you.
So we move then, members, to deputations on this particular matter. And we're going to go over to this side of the room, to the two ladies there. So we've got Sally Sines and Mo Horswell. They are objecting. But is the agent here for this application? No. So we haven't got the agent here. And of course, Councillor Weems is not here either. And so I don't know what he would have said. I don't think we've received anything from Councillor Weems thus far. Okay. So we'll go over to you two ladies. I think you've got 12 minutes between them. Juliet, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Chair.
So you've got 6 minutes each, ladies. Would we like to go first, say Sally?
Thank you. I'm a resident of South Downview for the last 6 years, and I'm a volunteer for the building, health and safety rep, and report repairs that need doing in the block. I'd like to say that it was unfair at the beginning of this application because 28 of our residents did not receive an application form to read for the application to go ahead. These residents are the social tenants of the building in level 1 and 2. Also, it was very difficult during COVID restrictions to hold a meeting with residents under the COVID restrictions law. So I had to do face-to-face at doorsteps, and a lot of them could not answer the door because they were frightened about COVID. So it's fair to say that there's misrepresentation of the letter that went out. I'd like to sort of pinpoint also about the car parking, which is on this map that I've got here. We have 59 resident flats and only 25 allocated spaces for car parking, which is causing a lot of problems in the car park itself. Over the last year and a half now, with the building being under cladding situation, we've had builders moving in, we've had everybody moving into the resident parking area, and just recently we now have a car salesperson selling cars in our car park, which are not taxed and MOT'd and things like that. So that's the situation we're driving at the moment, and also the residents have to pay £13 a year towards car parking, Some of the residents refuse to do this, and this is what's causing the problem in Military Road with the car parking situation. I'd also like to pinpoint out to you that on the ground floor there's an allocated bin shed for the vets. This bin shed is now occupied by oxygen cylinders, which is under the level of flats 5, 6, 7 and 8 above them. This is a health and safety situation, and I think this needs to be reconsidered. I'd also like to say, I would like clarification on, is it going to be manned with one person overnight, and is there going to be operations going ahead with the animals? If so, more than one person needs to be on duty. I'd also like to ask you about a letter that came with my letter, dated the 6th of April. This one's dated the 20th February 2021. An application from the architects asking for another 12 applications for parking. Can I pass this to you afterwards?
Yeah, indeed, you can do that. Sorry, Sally, what did you say?
So, can I'll pass this round to you afterwards?
Yeah, you can pass it around to you if you like to. We'll be keeping that be form part
Okay.
B.
I'd also like to pinpoint out to you that Premier Parking control the car park, and we've had many fines in the last few months, but they've been withheld now due to the fact that the builders overtook our car park and everybody else in situ. Premier Parking allow us to do out parking of 7 p.m. in the evening to 8 a.m. in the morning. This is the signpost that they've got, and I'll pass this to you as well, because this will not help the residents with the parking situation we have at the moment. What I'm requesting today is it possible for a meeting to be held between yourselves, local councillors, Vivid Housing, myself and another resident, and also a Premier Parking to be included as well, and for the application to be deferred today for re-looking back at it. Thank you. I'll pass over to Mo now.
Chair, do you want me to collect those documents?
Well, that'd be very kind of you. Thank you very much indeed. So, Mo, if you'd like to carry on whilst the members pass those things around. Pass them around, start with George, Councillor.
I certainly will.
I'm so sorry, could you just shimmy across a little bit and get a bit closer to the mic?
I certainly can.
That's very kind of you. Well done. Thank you very much.
All right. I live in Military Road, and I represent the people in Military Road, Firgrove Crescent and Rampart Gardens. Our roads are absolutely chock-a-block with cars, and I've been working with our councillors for many, many months because we are having issues that we can't even park outside our own properties. What we have is cars that are parked up on double yellow lines, on pavements, everything. The parking where I live is absolutely horrendous. I have only recently had the opportunity to meet with Sally, and we went round to the car park yesterday and we looked along our road yesterday. Our road is absolutely full of cars from South Downview, big trucks. We've had trucks that have been left there for 6 months, and we've contacted the council have looked at them, and they have said that the vehicle is taxed, it is insured, but it doesn't have an MOT, and sorry, they can't do anything about it, and they've asked me to contact the police. I'm not happy about that. What we've got is, we've got vehicles on our roads that are not roadworthy, and they are taking up all the spaces for everybody who actually lives in the area. This is something that has been ongoing for years, and it's been difficult, as Sally said, with COVID to try and get hold of people, and we've got a resident group, and the only people I've been able to speak to is quite an active resident group. So I don't actually represent everybody, because a lot of people wouldn't have had the opportunity to do this because of COVID restrictions. I've actually got something that a resident gave me, which is something which came from 2016, which is related to parking, and I will, as Sally has done, I've got a copy for you. It's related to parking and other mass issues that we have within our road since the property was actually built and advertised as Military Road rather than London Road. So parking and the vet's opening, and if they're allowed to put extra parking spaces in the buildings where Sally lives, those actually aren't being used at the moment. And I think for me, I'd like it deferred. I support Sally wholeheartedly in somebody going back and actually looking at all the parking that's actually there. One of the residents there, I know, had her car damaged, and that was because a truck was right next to her, because the parking spaces are small. And now they're looking to make them even smaller still, and people aren't parking in there, they're parking along our road. So for me, the parking is an absolutely critical issue for all the properties that are in and around near South Downview.
Thank you, Sally. I distinctly remember opposing this building for all the reasons you have both described, even though you lived there. I teased all this out a few years back, but others decided that I was wrong again. Members, any questions?
May I?
Yeah, Councillor Sanders.
Thank you very much. I also do want to make comments on this as I go along. No, I'll make comments at the appropriate time. I want to go to paragraph 5.10, which talks about the number of people who would use this, because I'm confused about some bits of it, so please help me. Okay? You say that there will be 5 people who would use it between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. each night, presumably 7 nights a week, 365 nights a year. Have we got any ideas as to whether they're concentrated within the first hour, or whether it's across all 3 hours, or didn't you get any of that stuff?
Councillor, thank you for your question. No, I mean, it is as set out in the report there. This was provided to the case officer on the 27th of May, and states that there will be an estimated 5 patients between the hours of 7 and 10, a further 1 patient between 10 and midnight, and maybe 1 patient between midnight and 6 o'clock in the morning, depending on, because they're offering an emergency veterinary service. It's very difficult to predict, obviously, when people will be. But in my experience, where I live, I've certainly had to use an emergency vet in the night, and it is simply a case of turning up when they tell you to, sort of thing. But I think it's.
Okay. Thank you.
It's rather like an emergency department at a hospital, I would suggest. Right. You know, you can't manage demand for such a service. It's just.
And that's a particular issue if hospitals are quite spaced apart, which is true in many of the NHS Wessex regions. So, are there any other veterinary surgeries, let's say on London Road, which isn't far from here, that are open 24/7?
There are about 3 practices in the Portsmouth area. I don't know precisely where they are, but I believe there are 3 vets within the Portsmouth area that offer 24/7 service.
I would agree with you on that assessment, Ed, and one of them is at 251 London Road, according to a Google search, which may be useful. So the other thing that interests me is you say there are no likely patients or vehicles between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. That's the advice of the applicant, yes? Yet you've got conditions here which talk about the hours of operation between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Mondays to Saturdays. Does that mean they haven't got anybody for the first hour of their operation?
Councillor, if I may just clarify, that's the current...
I know.
So they currently don't offer, as far as I'm aware, they don't offer an emergency 24/7 veterinary service, but they are proposing to expand to provide a 24/7.
Right, that's absolutely fine. Part of which overlaps with some of what looks like its current opening times, Mondays to Saturdays. I may have read that wrong, Ed, and please tell me if I have.
But the proposal is to allow opening 24 hours a day.
Right.
And that's the variation of condition now being sought.
Right. Okay. Those are my questions. Lee.
Yeah, thanks. Following the deputation by Sally Sines, she mentioned oxygen being stored presumably below your building, below the building in the veterinary practice, which was supposed to be a bin store. Is that something that the council must be concerned with? Do you know? Because she says a health and safety issue, so it's been raised with the council here today, and I need to make sure that it's something that needs to be followed through with. I've got portfolio holder. One moment, Ed. Councillor Sanders, you might be able to help us.
Thank you, Lee. The answer to your question, the straight answer to your question is yes, but it's not the planning department's gig. However, you're right. I'm more than happy to raise those issues with
I don't doubt
Sally
you will.
after
I
that.
don't doubt you will, but we are part of the council.
I
regardless.
understand that, but
and officers need to make a note of it, and I need to make sure that it having been raised with the council, that one of the officers raises it with the appropriate authority. Juliet.
Yes, I think is Darren going to raise it through...
I will raise it
officers?
with Juliet. If you wish to raise it with Mark Perry at Vivid Housing, that would be incredibly helpful. Thank you.
Sorry, was that Mark Perry? We'll speak at the end of the meeting.
I will send you his email address a bit later.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you both very much indeed. Any more questions, members? Councillor Fielding.
As we've heard from the deputations, there's serious concerns around parking in the area. Now, I know there's very little we can do in terms of that. However, can you confirm that the current application is going to allow an increase of activity at the premises? However, there's going to be no additional parking as part of this application.
So thank you for your question. I think as set out in the report that yes, there may be there might be demand for spaces given the nature of the emergency, nature of the use of the emergency vets. But as set out in paragraph 5.18 of the officer report, due to the limited number of customers, the local highway authority is of the opinion that there would be sufficient space to accommodate the associated parking on site at those times, and would not raise an objection on those grounds. That's not to say that there isn't a wider parking issue, of course, as we've heard from the deputations, but specifically in relation to this application, that's the view of the local highway authority.
Do we not give any consideration to the current use of the parking at South Downview, considering the fact that residents and businesses are unable to currently use that? As we've heard from the deputation, with the vehicles, the lorries currently parked in the parking for South Downview, I assume no consideration is given to that. We just assume that it's a empty parking for the building which the veterinary practice will have access to. Sorry, Ed, your mic's not on.
The report, as set out in the report, in paragraph 5.17, it's considered Furthermore, within this application, despite the parking standard for a residential component requiring 72 spaces for the 59 flats, the evidence base suggesting that only 46 spaces would be required was sound given the survey provided. 89 spaces were to be provided on the site to meet both the commercial and residential demand. As a consequence, there should be in the order of 43 spaces available overnight.
Well, that's as clear as mud to me, but there you are. Councillor,
I mean, I'm not sure that if you had a dying animal in the back of your car, you'd bother going into an underground car park where you might or might not have spaces. And this is not going to be all 5 people arriving at the same time with 5 dying animals. I would suggest that we took the advice of the highways. It would be reasonable under those cases, would it not, to be accept the advice we're given?
So the Highways Authority is saying there'll be 43 spare spaces available overnight. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chair. That's not correct.
We hear contrary evidence from residents and people living around say it's chock-a-block.
Chair.
Yeah. Councillor Atwell.
No, Chair, I think one of the deputies would like to add a comment.
Well, do you want to hear it, ladies and gentlemen? Because they've had their go, but I'm always open to make sure we have enough. You know, if somebody wants to add something that's useful to our thinking, we want to hear it. Fire away then, Mo.
Thank you very much. I have sent emails, I've sent video clips, I have sent pictures, and they've all gone to Dan. We went out last night and I literally went along the road, and you've got a commentary from me which shows everything, all parts along in Military Road. I only did Military Road and I only did the top end of Military Road, and I'd say 40% of those had actually come from Southdown View. Sally was there with me. Sally had a look at, and she could actually tell me who they belong to. If they're talking about putting in more parking spaces within Southdown View to accommodate greater opening times, they're going to be reducing the size of them, and they won't actually be able to fit cars into them. They've got 4 disabled spaces, and they're not sufficient for the number of people that might want to use that block.
Yeah, thanks, Mo. We've got it here in 5.17 on page 37. It says there's already a shortfall of 8 spaces from the original decision, but the officer report tells us that there are 43 spare spaces available overnight. So we're a little bit stuck just at the moment. Bearing in mind what you've told us, we've listened to it. But I did establish earlier, I don't think Councillor Williams has sent anything to the planning committee. So he hasn't forwarded your video or whatever, so we can't really consider that at this moment in time. But members may, having listened to what you said, it may well be that somebody makes a proposition to defer this to another time so we can properly examine the evidence that might well be with the councillor right now. I've got Councillor Smythe first, sorry.
Could we have some clarity then from the planning officer about the number of vehicles per hour that they think would be incurred by this planning application, which is after all only about extending the hours of the veterinary practice? I have no doubt that you have a horrendous parking problem, and I have every sympathy. But this planning application is just about how many vehicles are likely to come as a result of increasing these hours. What, in fact, the report says is that they don't think the total number of visits to the veterinary surgeon will be increased, but just that they'll be spread out over a bit of, out of 24 hours. That's what it says. Certainly isn't huge numbers. If you look at paragraph... anyway, my question is how many vehicles do we think are likely to arise from this particular planning application, in addition to what the veterinary surgeon has at the moment?
Councillor, thank you. So the veterinary surgery is currently conditioned to close at 7 p.m, I understand. The proposal is, the proposal could result in an additional 7 vehicles over a 12-hour period between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. I'm just trying to quickly work that out per hour, but it's not very many. It's 0.6 of a vehicle an hour, and that's based obviously on what the veterinary practice have told us.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
it's almost incidental, but it exacerbates what are the evidence we're hearing of a big problem, which we already know is parking's oversubscribed, even at 5.17 in the report, Councillor Fielding.
All I was going to say is, as well, that doesn't bear in mind the number of additional staff that would be at the premises as well.
Yeah, you stole my thunder there. So how many? I mean, it's a ratio of one staff member to 4 animals. So presumably at least 1 staff member, and we don't know how they will arrive there. They may well come by bicycle, for all I know.
Yes, I mean there may be 1 or 2 vets, veterinary nurses, assistants. I don't know how many, who may need to park, obviously, their cars. But yes, like you say, they've given the location of the site. They could also come by bus or bicycle. Yeah.
Well, remember, we seem to have finished the question, and Councillor Sanders, I'll come to you next, and anyone else. But we have a member of the public here who's forwarded relevant information that she wants seen and heard at the committee via one of our councillors, and for whatever reason he's not able to be here today, as we heard earlier on. It would be open to you, I think. We've got an issue around parking, that's quite clear, and it may well be that you want to defer it. I think, personally, in the interest of fairness and proper representation, I would want to do that, but it's up to you guys. Councillor Sanders.
Thank you, Lee. Personally, I refuse the application because I don't think there's a need for this particular service. And as a result of that, what the consequences of having this service would have a disproportionate impact on residential amenity. However, I don't think that if I put that forwards, it would survive the planning inspector. So I will propose that we defer this because I think we don't have the information. We don't know whether the extra vehicles between 7 and 10 at night are actually in the first hour or across all 3. We don't know. The information that's been given by the people in South Downview and in Military Road, we haven't seen. And there's also a suggestion of having a meeting as well, which might be useful. People say they haven't received the application notices. This is just crying out, frankly, for this to be deferred. However, if I may, I might suggest a few things that we can base our discussion on. Firstly, in my portfolio, I'm fully aware of the nightmare of living of several aspects of South Downview, because I know Councillor Peter Harris has been telling me about how wonderful it isn't. So I'm fully aware of some of the issues, and the idea of oxygen cylinders in bin sheds scares me rigid, frankly. So I think that's a separate issue, but that's symbolic of the lack of confidence that exists. It is no surprise that there have been increased parking in Military Road. That's related to the extra cladding work, frankly, that's been needed to be done on South Downview, but that remains a nightmare, and you don't feel confident. And I understand that, and we need to work that through. I think, personally, I can't see how this can be 24 hours. There's not the demand. 1 person, 2 people? That's not enough, especially when there's alternative provision so close by. So I can't see how we can vary it for 24 hours. But of course we can't consider need. There's a potential case for extending it to 10 o'clock, potentially, but we need to tease all this out because we don't have the full information. And so I would suggest that we defer it on the grounds that, 1, we can get all the information we need, including from Councillor Weems. 2, that a potential discussion with South Downview residents and other people is put forwards around some of the issues that are raised, particularly some of the people who live in there are currently undergoing a nightmare, frankly, need to feel part of this process, because at the moment nobody does. Personally, I refuse the application on ground of need, but I suspect that won't get through, so I would suggest a deferral so we could tease out the issues and find grounds on which we could take this forwards. Lee.
Does anybody else want to offer any other proposition to deferral. Councillor Ackwell.
We've met before. Chair, as a committee, we're always incredibly grateful to deputies coming along and providing information. As a committee, we are tasked with coming to a conclusion having regards to policy and other planning matters. I'm happy to proceed with the application today.
Well,
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you. So I would do the deferral myself because I want to see the other evidence. So, which one was on the paper, on the order paper properly first, Julia? Because
Not sure that there was a proposal already on the...
it was a deferral from Councillor Sanders.
Yeah, there's been no seconder to that though, has
So I've
there?
seconded it. What comes first though? But
who spoke?
Councillor Atwell makes the
Next.
proposition to approve.
Yeah, and then who spoke after that? So Judith.
Yes.
So that the motion for approval is first.
Okay. So there you are, members. So all those, if everybody's finished speaking, all those who want to approve the matter today, please raise their hands. So approval is given. I would have deferred it, so I abstain. And Councillor Sanders abstains.
Was that two abstentions?
2 abstentions.
Chairman, I just say how very sympathetic we all are with all the traffic problems and so forth, and what appears to be rather poor management of by Vivid of the situation. And I do hope that although it's not to do with this committee, we can take that back through the various channels, and the question of residential parking can be dealt with properly.
It does seem as though Ward Council has been speaking to Councillor Sanders, and there are other matters involved, so we will have to let them progress it here onwards. Okay, so on to the next matter then.
Excuse me, I know I'm out of order, but can I say that Councillor Wingmas actually asked for it to be deferred because he couldn't be here today?
I made that point, thank you, Mo.
And so he would have been the first person to ask for a deferral.
I understand that, and it would have been better for the evidence he had to be transmitted to the officers previously.
Disgraceful.
Pardon?
I think what's happened is disgraceful.
Well, I'm very sorry about that,
I know,
but it's been given
I know,
a
but I'm
good
just saying.
hearing today, so thank you very much for your time. Just permit this one more, Sally.
I'd just like to say that I don't think it's fair today that for it to go forward. Half of our residents didn't get the application form.
That's been noted.
And with the COVID restrictions, it's totally unfair and it's disgraceful.
Thank you.
Obviously, you don't want to live at South Downview yourself, so...
Well, I don't think there's any need for that, because the committee has considered it and listened very carefully to what you both said, so thank you both very much for your time today. We now move to item 4 on your agenda paper, which is Queen Alexandra Hospital.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be presenting the item Queen Alexandra Hospital, reference number 214/00848/OUT. Can I please refer members to the SMART previously circulated? The item before members today is for an plan application for demolition of existing car park structure and construction of building to accommodate emergency department that will be on 3 levels with a maximum floor area of 13,620 square meters. With a link to the main hospital, parking, which will be a reprovision of 216 parking spaces, predominantly at ground floor level. Formation of an emergency vehicle, pedestrian drop-off zones, configuration of internal highways, associated landscaping, infrastructure, and ancillary works. What is before members today, Chair, is principles of access to be considered. I'll draw members' attention to the slide. That's up, presentation, slide is up. The application application site lies to the east of the hospital site, where there is currently a two-story decked staff car park, and this is accessed from Leicester Road via Hunter Road and Satwick Hill Road. Courier Road runs along the northern side of the site and currently acts as a service road to the main building. The main building lies to the north and west, and to the east there are some smaller ancillary hospital buildings and a wellness center. To the south, there are two high-rise blocks of flats that is used for doctors.
Hold you up there, Ezzy. I've no doubt at all that Councillor Sanders is listening to all of this, because he can do so many things, but we'll just wait for him to come back to his chair. Thank you, Darren. Carry on.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just go a couple of sentences back. The main hospital building lies to the north and west, and to the east are some smaller ancillary hospital buildings and a wellness center. This can be seen on the location plan and area view. This is a 3D area view of the site, which shows the two high-rise blocks of flats occupied as doctors and nurses accommodation. Beyond the site boundary to the south are residential dwellings in Dame Judith Way, which we can see partly in this photograph slide. Beyond the site to the further to the east are and residential dwellings again opposite side of Satwick Hill Road. The application has been submitted in an outline form with access only to be determined by members. Although indicative plans have been provided to show the scale of the proposed buildings, matters relating to details, appearance, scale, layout, landscaping will be dealt with as reserved matters. The main matters for determination, as previously stated, are principle of the proposal, access, which contains the vehicular and the pedestrian access, highway impact, scale parameters, impact on the amenity of hospital users and nearby residents, air quality, ecology, contaminated land, and drainage. If I take members across to the side photographs taken there, we can see on the top left-hand side of the screen there is the existing deck car park looking north, and to the northeast of the screen is the looking east along Leicester Road accommodation block to the south, which is that for the doctors and nurses. And on the bottom left-hand side is the hospital building to the north. And then on to the southeast of the photograph is looking west along Courier Road, showing the site levels changes that do take place. There's another site photograph showing the view on top of the decked car park looking east. And then on the northeast photograph, you have the looking west across the top deck of the car park towards the main hospital buildings. We have the south-west photograph showing the entrance from Satwick Hill Road, which is controlled, and then the remaining photograph shows the view along Hunter Road. The slide here shows the three-dimension visual showing scale of the new emergency department in relation to the existing hospital buildings. And this slide shows the proposed access of the level A car park to be accessed from Hunter Road and Leicester Road. The upper floor, which is the level B outline, shows which is the drop-off via Hunter Road, and with indicative routes of pedestrians, fire vehicles, service vehicles, public vehicles, and the blue light vehicles. And it also includes staff access. And then level C outline shows the plant and equipment where they will be situated. The site in question, the hospital site in question, recently has had a couple of schemes that have been approved. If I start from the topmost, we have the North multi-story car park, and then we have the modular ward that was approved, and we have this current application, which is the new emergency department. Key to the issue in terms of access and the quantum of development in terms of the indicative scale, we look at the condition, the parking strategy, and the 2003 permission which was granted, and the condition requirement there, and this shows the number for staff and public, and existing for the whole site in terms of staff and public, and for the proposed site, and that encompasses the whole site and also the multi-story car park plus the ward and the proposed emergency department. And that gives you a total of 2,114 car parking spaces. But there is a change in terms of the numbers. So with regards to the staff car parking provision, there is a reduction by 245, whereas there's an increase of 257 to the public. But overall, there is a reduction in car parking of 98. The reason being that the hospitals proposed and the local highway authority and the local planning authority are in agreement that the Fort Southwick Park and Ride, which is situated approximately 2.8 kilometers from the Queen Alexandra Hospital, will be spaces that the hospital staff would utilize. And then we'll probably have a shuttle bus taking them to and fro from the park and ride. And the total staff parking spaces there is 992, and the unused daily spaces, daily is up to 450. And we also have parking restrictions within the sites, around the hospital site, which would encourage staff members to use the park and ride. In addition to the staff and the public traffic and vehicular traffic there, also factored into was the construction traffic and access and compounds, because to have this built-out way to be approved after the reserve matters, then there needs to be consideration of the amount of vehicular traffic coming in to the site. So this is a draft construction traffic assess and the compounds as shown. Thank you, Chair. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Ezzy. And just confirm we've got no representations on this at all. Beg your pardon?
Sorry, we have.
Yes, we have. Where's Mr. McFarland gone? We've been waiting patiently. Very pleased to see you, sir.
Thank you, Chair.
And if you would like to tell us about all the good things that are going to happen.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Mervyn McFarland. I'm Planning Director with Turley, and I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to make this deputation on behalf of the applicant, Portsmouth Hospitals University NHS Trust. I'll probably begin just by echoing the Head of Development Management's comments about new paragraph 96 of the NPPF, which came out yesterday and highlights the importance of delivery of essential public services. And I'd also like to say that in this case, officers have been very proactive in working with us and have given good pre-application advice, and we're very grateful for the proactive approach that's been taken to get us to this point. The planning application, which is before you today, seeks outline planning permission with detailed matters of access to be considered for the new emergency department at the hospital, and a grant of outline planning permission as recommended would represent a key milestone for the project. The Trust has an ambitious vision of working together to drive excellence in care for its patients and its communities, and transformation of emergency care provision is a key element of the Trust's strategy. The Building Better Emergency Care programme has been developed to deliver this transformation, and the Trust has been awarded a £58 million capital investment for a new emergency care facility at QAH, subject to standard business case approvals. And this will provide the opportunity to transform the way it delivers emergency care with modern, fit-for-purpose accommodation. The objective is to deliver safe, effective, efficient, timely and patient-centred emergency care. The current emergency department building is over 40 years old, and its constrained size and layout has limited the way care is delivered and has prevented implementation of best practice. Its physical condition does not provide a good enough experience for patients, visitors or staff, and patient demand currently exceeds by over 20% what the original building was built for, and this creates capacity issues which cannot be resolved within the current estate. Patient demand is anticipated to grow by 2.5% each year over the next 15 years, and so the current situation will worsen if a new emergency department is not provided. The new emergency department project will improve the physical environment for the benefit of patients through improved experience and clinical care outcomes, and for the Trust by ensuring an efficient and cost-effective department. This will contribute to a sustainable hospital estate that is fit for the future. The proposed scheme is designed to deliver significant benefits to the Trust and the community it serves. The proposal is fully described in the committee report and has been described by officers, but in summary it proposes a new emergency department in a 3-storey building with a floor space of around 13,620 square metres with links back to the existing hospital. Level A will provide a staff car park which will re-provide 216 of the 522 spaces currently found on that site, but again, as per the officer's presentation, that needs to be considered in the context of the totality of provision across the hospital site. Level B will accommodate clinical facilities for providing urgent care, paediatrics, radiology and resuscitation, with direct blue light access from Hunter Road for ambulances and a dedicated parking bay capable of accommodating 16 ambulances. Level C will include rest areas and wellbeing space for staff, as well as training rooms, changing facilities and supporting office space. Walk-in access to the adult and paediatric emergency department will be via the new drop-off access created off Curie Road to the north, and there will be improvements to the existing service vehicle access on Curie Road. The new department will see adults and children treated in single rooms, improving privacy and dignity for patients. It also means that patients with coronavirus symptoms or those from other respiratory diseases can be isolated quickly. The plans include new resuscitation bays, doubling the existing capacity for adults to 8, and meaning that more patients in critical condition can be treated. There will be 2 more resus bays for children, bringing the total to 4. A new CT scanner will be accommodated in the department, meaning that patients needing one will no longer have to leave the emergency department unit. The new building will be more energy efficient and will have easy to understand wayfinding signage for visitors. The new department will give the Trust the capacity it needs to meet the needs of the local community and will enable teams to work more efficiently to give all patients the very best possible care. Our positive decision today will give confidence for work to proceed immediately to develop a detailed proposal for full planning approval. This will be progressed in parallel with business case submissions to the Department for Health, with the intention being to start construction in 2022 and for the new emergency department to open in the second half of 2024. I therefore encourage you to support the officer's recommendation and grant outline planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. That's all great news. Thank you very much indeed for coming today. Members, any questions? Councillor Smythe.
How will patients who need to be transferred to a permanent bed in the hospital move from the new emergency department to the rest of the hospital?
I don't know if our planners will be aware of that, but if you guys want to refer to the deputation, it's up to you. If you don't know the answer.
Thank you, Chair. If I might refer to the slide that's put forward.
Link to existing hospital.
Which shows
that's at ground floor.
No, that's at level B.
Level B. That's where all the... so there'll be a lift going up, I guess. Double lifts and so on, as in the current hospital. Does that satisfy your question?
Thank you. I wasn't sure exactly how that was going to work, but thank you.
Any more questions then? Councillor Sanders.
Thanks, Lee. And also thanks to Ezzy for his briefing to me pre-match on this, which made me feel more comfortable about talking to people at the start, for which I'm very grateful. I'll raise a couple of points that I raised at that chat. First is around what discussions have there been about improving public transport to and from the hospital as part of this? Has there been any discussions around that with you and the team, Ezzy?
Not myself directly, with the hospital itself. I believe the case officer had a number of discussions with the hospital. I believe there's an agreement for a shuttle bus from the park and ride to the hospital for staff.
Okay, that was for staff. What about the public?
I don't believe there's any agreement in place, but I can find out.
Okay, that's fine. If you can find out 5 minutes before this is done, I doubt it, but that would be very, very helpful. That was my question, Lee.
Yeah, thank you. Any more questions then? No, so obviously I'm going to formally move the officer's report with its conditions. The conditions, I mean, they range from everything from a gained enhancement in biodiversity to controlling the noise for residents nearby, well, reasonably near, I think about 40 metres away, and indeed the patients. Members also, the Conservative contingent, they made it clear that they were okay with this report, so we can push ahead in that knowledge. And to hear all about these wonderful improvements that are going to come for the people of Portsmouth and the surrounding district, you know, new CT scanner actually in the emergency area, along with better rooms. So it's 58 million pounds worth of investment, and we're going to look forward to seeing it coming back with a detailed application as soon as is possible. And I hope you'll convey to your employers that, you know, we weren't sure this meeting was going to go ahead for various reasons, but we worked very hard, all of us together, yesterday and the day before, to make sure that this meeting took place, not only for this application, but it is a very important application, so we're very, very mindful of how important it is to get these infrastructure applications underway for the reasons that you described, Mr. McFarland.
No, thank you, Chair. I was aware of the difficulties in holding this meeting, and we are very appreciative that it has been able to go ahead. So thank you for that, and I'll make sure that's relayed back to the Trust.
Yeah, that's very kind of you. Thank you very much indeed. Did anybody else want to add anything? We need a seconder, of course. Councillor Sanders.
Well, I was happy to second formally that. I think this, in many respects, right or wrong, that was inevitable once the PFI came in with the QA, because spaces were being cut. And that always seemed to me to be a bit mad. And sooner or later there was going to be a crisis, and this proposal is trying to deal with that crisis that was an inevitable part of the PFI. So I'm delighted that we're investing in that infrastructure, so I'm delighted to second that. I would want to add 2 further points, if I may. The first is around public transport. There's a huge cut for staff, and I understand why, but there's also a huge increase in car parking spaces for the public. And I'm concerned that there's been no discussion around trying to improve public transport. This council has rightly put itself into a climate emergency. We're doing what we can, and hopefully a bit more, to try and make sure that happens. We hope all our stakeholder partners will do the same, and I hope, Mr. McFarland, if we progress further on, that we'll see a comprehensive way of improving public transport, particularly in those areas that were outlined in the objections, which essentially is the Paulsgrove, Drayton and Farlington and North Mimmering areas. The only other thing I would add as an informative is that given that there is an increase in car parking spaces, that means that there will be more money going into the hospital because of the car parking charges that are excessive in the eyes of many people. And we can't add this as a condition, and we don't want to stop it, but I would respectfully suggest we add as an informative that the Trust looks at ways in which it could cut car parking charges for the public spaces. We can't do that as a condition, but an informative might be of some help. Thank you.
And I'm sure Mr. McFarland's got that. Also, of course, we're all interested to know what will happen to the old unit, the former unit. I don't suppose we'll find out straight away, but it would be nice to have some idea as to what's going to happen there in due course, or as soon as reasonably practicable, because we're all interested in that as well. Okay, members, anybody would like to add anything else? So, let's go to the vote then. All those for approval of this matter with the conditions described, that's unanimous.
I wanted to say that. Sorry.
Go on, Izzy.
I wanted to say that
Could you put your microphone on, please, madam?
Sorry, apologies. The SMART, Chair. Yes, supplementary transport notes. So if I just refer, Chair, to the supplementary transport note, it's further stated that the existing emergency department has a floor space of 2,947 square meters, and that's approximately 2% of the total floor space of the hospital, and could accommodate approximately 72 bed spaces, similar to the new ward block approved on the North Car Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Ezzy. We've all seen that. Okay, so that's approved, and we'll move on now to the last item, which is the warehouses at Hillsey. Gentlemen, who's doing that? Again, our Conservative colleagues have indicated that they would have had no issue with this particular application. I understand it's here, not because anybody's objected to it, but simply the size of the application, and therefore it needs to come to the committee for that reason.
Chairman, thank you. It's back to me. Yes, so this is an application at Queensbury House on Fitzherbert Road, and as the Chairman has rightly pointed out, it is before you because it is in excess of 1,000 square metres of industrial floor space. The site is located to the south of Fitzherbert Road, accessed via Fisher's Grove, within an existing industrial area. It is within a designated employment area and also flood zone 3. The St John's School playing fields that you can see on the aerial photograph south of the railway line are an important site for Brent geese and Solent waders. The former buildings on this site were demolished.
Could we see the plans, please?
Yes, I will get there. Sorry, thank you, Councillor. So the photographs there show the sort of character of the existing area, and the bottom two photographs show the previous buildings having been demolished. If we can move on, Izzy, thank you. So the plan on the right of your screen showed what was previously given permission, and as set out in the officer report, that was in 2017. Sorry, I'm moving myself on. What is now proposed is for two larger units. Going back to the right-hand side picture, units 1 to 5 have been approved and built out, as far as I'm aware. The smaller units, units 6 to 17, shown as small units on the southern two buildings nearest to the railway line. This permission seeks to supersede that by proposing two larger units oriented north-south, as shown on the left-hand side of your screen there. That is supported by colleagues in economic growth who say that's what the market is sort of demanding at the current time. Moving on, next slide please. So that just shows the floor plate of the proposed unit. And the next slide please is elevations, so fairly standard industrial type buildings in materials that will match existing buildings in that area. And the next slide, please, I think, shows the access arrangements and also some scope for some additional planting between the building and the railway line. And that is the slides that you have in front of us. As you will see in your SMAT, there is a proposal there's a requirement to amend condition 5 with regard to the construction management plan. And in addition, following an email received this morning from the agent, there has been submission of further information in respect to contaminated land, such that officers advise that the condition 3 on your agenda papers is no longer required, and that condition 4 needs to be updated in the light of that. So officers recommend that the recommendation be amended from conditional permission to delegate to the, as with the South Down View application, to delegate to the Assistant Director of Planning and Economic Growth to amend the conditions as necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Members, any questions? The only question I've got is, whenever we hear about residential, commercial type thing, Ed, we always put in things about bird boxes, bat boxes, and so on. Is there any reason why, when we do applications like this, or consider applications like this, that we shouldn't also want these buildings to improve biodiversity? I didn't see anything in there, Ed.
Councillor, if I may go, Izzy, if you could go back to the last slide, I think it is. Yeah, you'll see on the right-hand side there a little green shaded area.
Yeah.
That is proposed a proposed area of wildflower planting to improve. As I'm sure you'll appreciate, there's not a huge amount of scope to improve ecology in this particular area, but that is an attempt by the applicant to address that issue.
We raise it every time, Ed, and I don't get stuck on it, but on the buildings you could put swift boxes and bird boxes and bat boxes and things like that.
Yeah, as I was going to say, and as set out in the report, indeed, a landscaping scheme has been proposed, which includes the wildflower planting, and also bird and bat boxes are proposed to be installed on the southeastern side of the building.
Ah, well, I'm glad.
And this will be secured by condition.
Well done.
So I got there in the end.
Well done, sir. Thank you very much indeed. I'm very pleased indeed. Councillor Smythe, then Councillor Sanders.
To add to that, I'm always rather surprised that there aren't massive arrays of solar panels on the tops of these sorts of roofs. Is that something we could do via planning, and is it something that has been discussed with the applicant?
That is something that could be discussed with the applicant.
Could you pop your microphone on, please, Ed? Thank you.
I note from the officer's report that the application, that the proposal seeks to achieve the BREEAM rating of very good, and the applicants explain why an excellent rating would be would be difficult to approve. I don't have access to that information at the moment, I'm afraid, but condition 10 does require the BREEAM standard to be complied with. In terms of renewable energy on the roof, that isn't part of the current proposal, but they could apply for that subsequently, should they so wish.
It's a completely correct point to bring up, and we're all in agreement on this, and thank you for raising it. But you're completely right. I mean, when you go abroad, not only do you see solar panels, especially in Spain and Portugal and so on, and experience that kind of weather, these are really important, but they also put sails, and they don't have to be ones up in the sky. You've got these rotating ones as well on the ground that go round, that all add to the reduction. And we're experiencing this awful hot weather, well, lovely hot weather actually for me, but problems of flooding and so on. Ed?
I can also just clarify, Councillor, with respect to the issue about solar panels, of course, with the building being oriented north-south, and with its curvilinear roof that is proposed on it, domed roof on it, it may not be the optimal orientation for solar panels. I'm aware that they only operate efficiently within about 45 degrees of south, and there would be very little south-facing roof slope on this building.
Okay, but the point is well made, and indeed with these all sorts of different ways of getting in wind power as well. In some countries, you can't get a factory unless you put up a sale or something like that, and it's about time this country moved to that, bearing in mind sometimes it can be in the flight paths of birds, so you always have to be very careful and circumspect around this sort of thing. But anyway, I'm glad we're all on the same page when it comes to that, and I'm sure the officers have noted it, and we'll push all applicants every single time to try and get maximum solar panels, wind power and wave power if at all possible. Anyway, thank you all very much indeed for coming today. That item's, we've gone to the vote on it or not? I can't remember. All those in favour of it, please raise their hands. Thank you. With the conditions attached. Sorry?
Lee, are we allowed, both George and I were interested to know whether we're allowed to make comments on this at all.
Oh, go on then.
Do you wish to go first, George?
Go on.
I don't actually have any to make, but I was just going through process.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm getting on a bit. I'm coming up for my leave. I'm going on 3 weeks leave shortly, so I'm getting DMOB happy.
Can we have a firster and a seconder, please, first chair?
Very good. Councillor Sanders proposing, Councillor Fielding seconding, I guess, or?
I think Councillor Sanders is wanting to make comments on it.
I did, which was,
good.
well, I did want to second your proposal, Lee.
Oh, I proposed, didn't I? Yes.
But to say that Judith is completely right about solar panels. I mean, it's not as if we've got an award-winning energy services team that exists in this council at all, honest gov, that may be of some help. But I wanted to know, and Juliet will no doubt tell me legally it's wrong, but I would want to find a way in which we could actually ask the applicants to liaise with the council's energy services team around installation of solar panels. I would say, Ed, I fully understand that, but we're currently putting in place ideas to put in passive house design in some of our houses on the mainland. Even though that may not be optimal, we're going to give it a go and see what happens. And it may not work, it may work, but I wouldn't want what people may feel are practical barriers to get in the way of actually doing something. So I don't know whether this qualifies as a condition that we can fiddle around with Briam, Juliet, or is it one of those lovely informatives where we ask them very, very nicely?
Or could we, perhaps, Chair, if I might add consideration of other electricity generating things like the wind farm?
Yeah.
Juliet, if it was you, how would you phrase this, if at all?
I would put it on as an informative, based on what the officers have said, to consider.
And within that, could we say that it is the strong preference of the committee members present that we wanted to do that?
I don't think that's going to assist in any way, Chair.
Indeed. So, can you do that, please, gentlemen? Make sure that they're aware of the comments that have been made. Very strong comments, and they're rightly made. We're doing battery storage ourselves and so on, so we're all in this together. The floodwaters keep coming, and we've got to get something done about it. It means everybody doing their bit. Okay, members, so it's proposed, seconded by me, seconded by Councillor Sanders. All those in favour, please raise their hands. I'm sure, thank you, Councillor, that's unanimous then. Again, thanks everybody for coming. I am going away for 3 weeks to watch the Olympics at home, and you won't be seeing me until we've won something like, I think it's going to be about 27 gold medals, in my opinion, I hope. Anyway, thanks very much, and good luck to the Team GB in the Olympics. That's the meeting concluded.